All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about what to do when feeling depleted and drained. And so, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, the founder of Restored Minds, and the creator of the AAA Response. And in this episode today, I want to talk about just the general feeling of feeling depleted and drained. And yes, there are certain periods of our life where we're just operating too hard, too fast, and we just burn ourselves out, right? And I'm guilty of this myself. It's an area that I continue to work on in my own life. And then but then there's this experience that I think many of us are experiencing, and that's really what I want to talk about today, where we're just feeling drained, we're feeling just depleted. We've gone through this 2 year real pandemic, and the drain has come from the constant changing of rules. Am I going to be able to travel? Am I, what do I have to do for work? Am I going to get fired? Right? It's like, is the business going to shut down? Is my business going to be able to sustain? Right? I mean, what are my kids going to be going through? What's the changes going on with school? Do we want them in this? Is it safe? There's so many just ongoing questions that we've been hit with, not to mention the political aspect that we've really seen unfold, and the news and media bombardment of just fear and fear and fear and fear. And that has created this ongoing stress that is extremely abnormal, right? I think that's one of the things I just want to talk about today, is just how abnormal this past 2 years is, and what many of us have lived through. And what most of us do is we completely minimize it. We just say, well, everyone's going through it. Yeah, well, everyone is going through it. And it doesn't mean that that doesn't weigh on us, right, as individuals. Because this has been a very challenging experience for everyone. And when we operate in that state for an ongoing period of time, eventually we just run out. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about when we're feeling depleted and drained, like what do we do? What do we do with that? It's funny. I was talking with my wife at dinner last night, actually, and we were kind of just sitting there, and both of us just kind of just felt in a funk, and it was and we just both kind of looked at each other and just like, I just feel drained. I just feel disconnected. I feel just depleted. And so I wanted to make an episode today about that, because I think that feeling is way more common than I realize. And it's something that needs to be addressed, because if we don't address it, we're just going to continue in the cycle, right, that we're going in. So what do we do when we're feeling that way, right? And when we're feeling that way, let's be real. It's like getting through the day can feel like a victory sometimes. And that's great. And it is. But if you do that day after day after day after day, eventually, just life's going to wear you down. And so I want to talk about some simple things that I'm doing in my own life to navigate this, that hopefully you can take and maybe start to implement your own, that will help you with this, because there is things that we can do, right? We are not a victim of circumstance, right? But there is an element where we have to really take charge and responsibility in areas of our life. So the first thing is connection, right? One of the biggest tragedies and abnormalities, and the thing that I think I'm most, that's been the most challenging about this whole COVID pandemic is the disconnection and isolation that we've experienced as humans. It's one of the most abnormal things that and again, we've justified it, right? We've normalized it, right? We've done all these things to make people feel like it's a normal experience, right? to feel isolated and disconnected. And this was before the pandemic, I mean, I at least I remember, most of us were already disconnected and isolated to certain degrees just from the pace that we were living, right? Didn't have any real authentic connection with people, or very limited authentic connection. It was very surface. And this is, I can just recall in my own life, right? And now you take that and stack upon almost 2 years now of, hey, we're going to shut down. Hey, stay in your house, hey, so, and because even wearing a mask, what we need to understand is that creates a certain disconnection from people, right? Because we as humans, most of our communication is completely nonverbal. So when you look at someone, you're able to communicate just with facial expressions, and we've taken that away with mask. And with kids, especially, it's like kids learn from watching your face, and they learn from mimicking, right? And we've done these things for a couple of years now, and never really stopped to think about, like, is this the best thing for us, on a long-term basis. And so, but the disconnection is the first thing that I want to talk about. And obviously, what to counteract, we need to establish connection, right? You need to do it responsibly, do it safely, of course. What feels, and one of the ways I would say to do that is what feels right internally. What feels right internally for you. So one of the things that my wife and I talked about was just saying, hey, every week we're going to commit to having dinner with some group of friends, right? Like another couple, like just a few friends. Once a week, we are going to have some kind of community gathering in person, and that's something that I think is so important that we have gotten out of the habit of. And when you don't have that connection, that drains you, right? And so having connection is critical. And I mean, and I'm going to go out and say, like, the idea of in-person connection, right? Face-to-face connection, right? Without a mask, like seeing someone, enjoying someone's smile, enjoying time and communication and connection with others. Like, that needs to be part of your regular diet. And most people don't think of that like a diet, but I mean, that feeds your soul. It feeds your spirit. And that, like, when you talk about, feeling depleted and drained, right? Like most of us feel, it's in here, right? Our basic needs might be met. We might have food, shelter, water, right? All that. But when we're talking about feeling this depletion, right, internally, it needs to be, because a part of that is because the complete disconnection and isolation and lack of connection that many of us are experiencing. So one of the things that I'm doing for myself is saying, hey, look, I'm gonna commit to connection with people. And we do that in the ways that we feel is best. And I would encourage you to do the same, because that will be a big part of elevating your spirits, right? And filling your cup, right? You cannot operate on an empty cup. You cannot operate on fumes, right? You have to fill your cup up. Okay. And there might be certain people in your life that you want to see and that you need to see. And that's okay. Like that's going to be a big part of the filling of the cup. The second thing is how, like setting aside time for yourself. And there's a few exercises and things that we can do during that time, right? So one of the things I did this year, and I've never done it before, is I blocked out 30 minutes on my calendar for meditation, reflective, and quiet time, right? Like that, like every morning, right? I said it when I get to my desk at 8:30, from 8:30 to 9, it's not going to be email. It's not going to be, I'm not going to get involved in the day. I'm not going to go into the day. I'm going to take calculated time to have quiet time for myself, right? Like that is something that I've decided I'm going to do this year. And I gotta say, it's been a week, and it's one of the greatest things. I'm so bummed that it's taken me this long to really commit to something like that, because when it's on our calendar, we commit to it, right? If we say we're going to meditate, if we say we're going to take quiet time, if we say we're going to read or do something for ourselves, we always just put it off and we get lost in the day. At least that's me. So having that time where you can, really take your own time and give that to yourself, right? So good. And some of the things that I would recommend are, meditation or some kind of reflective period, right? Where you can just sit in stillness and in silence. And that's going to allow you, right, to really experience and notice what you're even experiencing inside. And then another thing is journaling. Journaling used to be a big part of my life, right? And, you know, it's so funny because I just stopped doing it. I was just like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to do that. Or, I would get caught up in doing something else and I would, justify not doing it. But the point is journaling, what journaling allows us to do is get what's going on in here in our minds out onto paper, right? And we don't have to carry it around. And journaling has been shown very evidence-based to reduce stress, to help you process emotion, right? And again, which stress and inflammation are one of the big leading factors of most disease that we experience as humans. Okay. So navigating, just simple meditation and quiet time and even prayer, right? As well as journaling and taking the time to get what's going on in here out on paper. And it's not a documentation and it's not a diary. You don't need to explain your whole day, just kind of a self check-in and just really taking the time to say, hey, what's going on in here, and putting it out on paper. One of the things that does is it forces you to kind of encounter what's going on and actually put a name to it, to process it, right? It's one of the reasons it's so therapeutic. And there's no right way to do this, no wrong way. I mean, there's some great options, right, on Amazon, right? I'm trying a new journal, to be transparent here. I'm going to be trying one here for the first quarter. And so these things can be simple things we can do, right? Blocking out a time, using that time for, reading something you want to read, meditating, prayer, right? Journaling, right? These simple things, right? That anyone can do. Okay. And it doesn't need to be fancy. You could buy a notebook and just journal in it. Okay. Whatever, but taking the time to give yourself that and gift it to yourself will help you fill back up that cup, right? Because you're taking that time to kind of deal with your stuff and actually process it and actually navigate it. And that's so important because, like I said, one of the things that we do, we get so caught up in the busyness, we dive right into our day. The first thing we do, we wake up and all of a sudden we're on our phones, we're checking the inbox, and all of a sudden we're lost in the chaos of the day. And for so many of us, the days just run us. And I'm guilty of this. So when we're talking about what to do when feeling depleted, the first thing is connection. Many of us have had relationships that have been lost, damaged, neglected at the very best during this time, and reestablishing those and re-nurturing those relationships is an amazing thing. Now sometimes that might just be a phone call. Other times it might be FaceTime, Zoom, but I mean, the best thing we can do is really get back to establishing healthy connection with people in person, and I really think that that's going to be a big aspect of healing from what we've experienced. And when we talk about feeling depleted and run down, doing things to take care of ourselves is going to be a huge part of that as well. So obviously things like exercising, sleeping, right? Eating well. These are obviously things that we can do as well. Okay. I mean, taking care of ourselves. Most of us, I know alcohol sales have been through the roof during this pandemic, right? And a lot of us have self-medicated in many different ways, whether it's through technology or whether it's through alcohol or other ways. Noticing the ways you're self-medicating, if you are. A lot of us don't want to look at that and acknowledge that stuff, but that's a big aspect of healing too. And so if you're feeling depleted and drained, it means that you've been operating in an unsustainable way and in a way that's essentially draining your battery. So what we need to start doing, as opposed to continuing to operate like that, we have to make changes. We have to challenge it. We have to say, hey, look, I've been operating like this. My body's explaining to me that this isn't working. And then we need to start integrating changes to say, hey, here's what I can do differently, right? And it starts with just such simple little changes. blocking out that time for yourself on your calendar, setting up that lunch with that friend, right? Um, Journaling, taking that time to write out and saying, hey, you know what, like when you journal, one of the things you're doing when you journal is you're showing yourself like I matter and what I feel matters because I'm taking the time to write it out and process it. And that behavior is proving to yourself that, when you neglect yourself by ignoring that and just getting lost in the day, you're subconsciously communicating to yourself, well, that's not important. It's not important, but it's the most important, you know? So taking the time for yourself, doing things to take care of yourself, to heal yourself, to rejuvenate yourself and restore yourself needs to happen. Because if you continue to operate like that, and this is something that again I know I'm working on in my own life right now, because it was just a great conversation that my wife and I had last night where we started looking at each other, and it's like we need to make some changes from how we've been living to lift ourselves up, to get ourselves in a much better place. So of course we can be of better service for others and just operate at a better state of self, for our families and our loved ones and friends. So hopefully this is helpful. And again, just simple takeaways today. Don't do these radical changes that you can't commit to. Commit to 10 minutes. Block it in your calendar though, and say, I'm going to spend this 10 minutes on me. And if you do that, I think that you'll start to notice a ripple effect of that filling. And over time, like that will start to lift you up and really help you notice moving away from that feeling of depletion and feeling drained all the time. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on this episode. Down in the links in the notes of the show, we have some resources for you, for whether it's some free trainings as well as guides. And if you're dealing with OCD, anxiety, and struggling with stress on high levels, I really hope you'd consider joining us and taking back control. And again, we have various options, whether it's a self-directed program or our group program or even our individual, coaching services. So hope you'll consider that as well. And again, thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for watching that video. And so if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I just wanted to let you know that we have a free training for you over at Restored Minds, where you can start learning how to use our AAA response to really break out of that loop and ultimately take back control of your life. And all you need to do to access is just click the little link below, and you'll be taken to a page where you can register today. Thank you so much.